Everybody, welcome to our call tonight, and we really appreciate you joining us. As I always say, you worked a hard day, and the fact that you're joining us is awesome. So I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about in just a minute. However, I'd like to introduce you to my fellow coach, Troy Peterson. Troy, anything to add?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know you're going to get some good stuff tonight.
So Karen couldn't join us, but I'm going to tell you more about that in just a bit. It's her presentation, which is Claim Your Edge, 3 marketing tips for real estate leads. Now, let me just tell you, you can have the best real estate business in the world, but Troy, if you have no leads, what do you have?
You've got no business.
That's right. You have no business. You have no business being in business. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to put a video on that Karen prepared today for you guys. Runs about 35 minutes. You can ask your Q&As in the chat, and Troy and I will answer those a little later on. But I do want to mention the real estate workshop coming up next weekend, which is October 13th, 14th, and 15th. We still have room. You can get your, we'll post the link, and you can get a discount, $200 discount by putting WB 200. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and cue up the video, and we'll just sit back and watch, and we'll talk to you in about 35 minutes.
Well, hello, and I'm so glad that you joined us for tonight's Wealth Builders webinar. This is really a fun session, and I just want you to know ahead of time, like there's 20 things that I could share with you on this topic, but with the webinar, I only have time for 3. But just to give you a great idea on how to claim your edge in real estate investing. So I'm going to be sharing 3 marketing tips, some of them on how to buy and get the right properties right, and then some on how to sell. And I just want to encourage you hey, if you are interested in real estate, be a part of our workshop that is coming up. It is next weekend already, October 13th through the 15th. And we're going to be unpacking so much information for you. But really, we just love to spend time with you. If you can do the in-person, do that. By live stream, we do the Q&A, and we are connected with you. So anyway, I hope that this is helpful for you tonight, and it's sharing experience that we have actually applied in our investing. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, and claim your edge, 3 key real estate investor marketing tips. All right, so here are the 3 key real estate tips I'm going to be sharing with you. And as I go over each of them, I'm going to explain them a little bit. Some of them I've got like some examples, that you can apply. But here's the 3 that I came up with to share with you tonight. And again, there's many more that we'll be sharing at the workshop, but this will get you started for sure. All right, so on the buy side, one of the most important things is to understand the situation of the seller. And that is a key marketing tip because it gives you an edge to be able to attain the properties and really kind of also make sure that you're meeting the needs of the seller. And I'll go more into detail on that, but just remember, everything we do here at Wealth Builders is a win-win. We definitely are good business, but we also want to make sure that when we're part of a transaction, that we are blessing the other people in that transaction as much as possible. All right, the second one, and this is both on the buy and sell side, is to network with other real estate investors. I'm going to be sharing some examples of this. And then also, of course, this is what Wealth Builders is all about. Those of you that are in the coaching program know that, there's opportunities that we purposely put together for you to network. And I'll share more about it, but it's just amazing. When we connect with each other, we can really help each other. And there's also networking opportunities in your communities that you can connect with that's going to help you to really move forward in your real estate investing. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is on the sell side is presenting your property to the ideal buyer with the end result desired in mind. And this is all about looking at the property, figuring out what the purpose of that property is, meaning the exit strategy. And then it's taking the steps that will actually meet the needs of your target market or your ideal customer segment. All right, so the first one, understand the situation of the seller. This is a great quote by Billy. And, truth be told, I really didn't get this initially, but I definitely get it now because being in the game, I totally understand what he's saying. He's just so full of wisdom. And this is one of those nuggets that's going to help you a lot to maximize your real estate investing. And it's this: you make money when you buy, not when you sell. You make money when you buy, not when you sell. And that is, there's layers of truth there, okay? But one of the key things is when you buy a property and you calculate the ARV, exit strategies, all the things that we go over with you, that's when you really make your money. It's because you're getting into the market at a certain price point and you have figured out what that property is worth. And if you fulfill that call, you might say, on that property, you fulfill the plan, you properly calculate your ARV, the difference maker in how well you do goes back to what you were able to buy it from. So I'll give you a great example of this. We were able to purchase a property in Cocoa Beach recently, meaning within the last year. And we were able to buy a property 1 block from the beach for $362,000. And that was because really Levi understood this. He had learned from Billy and he was able to go in and negotiate with the little things I'm going to be sharing with you. But when we look at that market now, we realize that it was untouchable in a way. We understood the situation of the seller, which is really impacted what we offered and how we approached it. But our ability to either turn that into a vacation rental or to sell that property goes back to what we were able to buy it from. Now we're in a season right now, which you probably heard us talking about on the recent webinars, that we're going into that great time to buy, not only because of the economic conditions that are, high interest rate environment, people are starting to drop prices, but also because when you go into that last quarter of a year, you're able to pick up properties because a lot of people just kind of check out for the holidays. And that was definitely the situation with what I just described with you. We actually negotiated that during the Christmas holiday season. And we just didn't have a lot of competition out there. There wasn't a lot of other investors that were active during that time. So there's some real good tips for you as we go into the market here. So here's some practical ways for you to learn the situation of the seller. And that's one of the ways that helps you to buy right. So the first one is research what the seller bought the home for and when. That's really important because I want to know how much they have into a property, because if they were able to buy a property, for example, and I'll actually show you a real example from realtor.com for $300,000, and 2 years later, they're selling it for $600,000, you have a pretty good idea that there's a lot of appreciation in there and probably not a lot of hard money investment into the improvement of the property. But you do want to check. You can look at the old MLS, you can look at some old listings out there and really see what that property looked like when they bought it. And when you see that they haven't done that much, they are just completely riding appreciation, which puts you and I on the buy side in a good position because we know that they haven't actually dished out the cash per se to support that price. They're going on appreciation. The second one is, have they tried to sell it before and for how much? It's really interesting. Laura, one of our advanced real estate coaching clients, her and Travis, they were sharing that when she bought the property that they're in right now, she went back and did the research just like what I'm describing. And what she was able to tell in that is that they had tried to put the house on the market for a certain amount. They dropped it, they pulled it off the market, they put it back on, back at a higher price. So that gave her insight into the situation of the seller, that they were actually willing to sell that house at a lower price within the last year. Okay, there is a lot of that out there, and there's a lot of properties. When you look at the actual history, which you can do on Zillow, you can do it on Realtor.com. Certainly, if you have an agent or you have access to MLS, you've got really detailed access to it. But you're able to see how many times they have tried to sell it before and for what amount, which gives you, again, a little bit more insight into that seller situation. Another one is to research the mortgage amount owed on the home. Now, I know in Florida that the real estate agents can actually go in and locate it. I know that in Minnesota, for example, I'm able to go in and find that information on the tax property records. So it really depends on what your state shows you and has to offer, to find out what that mortgage amount is. One of the things that Billy talks about is that if you're serious about a property and you want to know how much they owe and your real estate agent or you aren't able to find it, he'll talk to a title company and he'll pull something called an O&E, and that's an owners and encumbrances report. It's very inexpensive, probably $20 to $50. And in that, you're going to be able to look at that report and see all of the liens on that report. So oftentimes this is available publicly, so you don't need to even go to that length to be able to find out how much they owe. But that's really important, because if somebody is backwards on a property, they're not going to have room to negotiate, or you're going to put yourself in a short sale that you didn't intend to. However, if someone owns the home free and clear, okay, that's going to give you insight into, they don't have to pay anything off. They might be someone interested in seller financing, because with the equity that they have in the home, they may have some tax liability as a result of the sale. So it just tells you a lot about the situation of the seller. How long has the home been on the market? That's a big one. We really recommend that if you're going in and trying to find a potentially good deal, meaning that you want to buy something under market, that's one of your key indicators. Find those properties that have been on the market for 90 days or more. And those probably, if there's other things that line up, meaning they don't owe more than what they're asking, they didn't pay more for than what they're asking, that's going to give you a motivated seller. They're probably getting weary of having the house on the market. They're probably really pressing their real estate agent because they're wondering why they haven't sold. And it's probably a really good indicator that they are overpriced, which gives you a reason to be able to come in and go lower. Because if they were priced right, that house would have sold. You can have your real estate agent ask some questions. This was really helpful. Why are they selling? That's really important to know. And we actually have a home on the market right now. And that's one of the questions that an agent asked us, is like, why are you selling? Why is he asking that? He wants to know what our motivation is, or if there's something wrong with the property, right? Is there a death in the family? Is this an estate situation? Is there an urgency to sell it? And sometimes the family situation or the situation of the seller is more urgent than price. Those are all good things to know. And you can have your real estate agent ask the other real estate agent those questions. Here's the thing, when you have good real estate agents, they're really after bringing a buyer and a seller together in a way that is mutually profitable to both. So in most situations, unless it's something privy, they're going to share that information if they know that you are a serious contender as a buyer. Is there anything that would be helpful to know about the property and the sale? So that's another great question. One of the things you can see is if something has gone under contract and gone back out. And so in that situation, it would be a great question to say, hey, Mr. Real Estate Agent or Mrs. Real Estate Agent, I see that this property was under contract and it fell out of contract. Is there something about the property that you can share with me? What was the reason that it fell out of contract? Or in some situations too, when you ask, is there anything helpful for me to know that I can tell my buyer, right? That would help them to make a decision to make an offer on the property. And in that situation, just like the property I was sharing with you, it was an estate situation. It was a mom that lived in a property and she wasn't able to keep it up. She passed away. And now the siblings, her children, are selling the home. That's really helpful because we know that, you know what, they are just ready to get this house sold. There's didn't seem to be a lot of attachment to it because one of them would have kept it. And so they're probably out just trying to get that property sold by the end of the year so they get their money. That's all good information. Also, you can pick up clues around in and around the home. So let me tell you who's an expert at this. Remember when Billy and Becky were sharing when they came down to Florida to visit us, and Billy was teasing me that they thought we were just going out to dinner, and I gave them all these MLS reports and I took them on the road to look at properties. Well, I learned a lot in there, not only from Billy, but from Miss Becky. And we were in one property that really looked viable. And we were kind of trying to figure out, gosh, what would we offer on this? And we were having the discussion about the situation of the seller. And Miss Becky looked at me and she said, this is a single dad. So he either just went through a divorce, or something. And I was like, how did you know that? And she said, well, if you go in here in the closet, there's only guy clothes. If you go in this bedroom, it's a kid's bedroom, but it's something you can tell that the kid is not in every day. So that's a great example of like, hey, there's something going on here with the family dynamics. And it's helpful for us to know if we're looking at going in and looking at buying the property. I've got a picture that I'm going to share with you too that is going to really give you a clue as to the situation of the seller. And so I'll wait to share that with you until we get to the picture. All right, and then check county records. Who owns the home? So if it is in the name of an LLC or a company, that's a pretty good idea that it's an investor, right? Or it's a person that does flips. And it's good to know going in that this is a person that is in real estate investing. They're understanding things about real estate investing. So I'm actually probably going to deal with them differently than I would someone that it's in their personal name that I know they might have a personal attachment to it. One of the things that Levi does, which I think is really helpful, is when we go in to put a bid on a property and we're going in low, if he knows it's an investor who has, savvy, they have knowledge, they're looking at the numbers, there's not an emotional attachment. If we're going in low, he will make a list of explanations as to why we're going in low. The things we saw on the property that we would still have to improve. Some of the things that we're seeing in the market, because that's talking their language, right? So when you know the situation of the seller, you're able to communicate and come in with an offer in supporting information that kind of meets their felt needs or the situation that they're in. All right, so I'm going to show you just a few examples of the things that I've talked about. So when we're talking about a property history and we want to know how much they bought it for, here's an example. I took this from realtor.com. It's a real property in Cocoa Beach. And one of the things I was looking at, as you can see, is what did they buy it for? So just over 3 years ago, they bought this property for $280,000. All right. So when looking at that, they're asking for more than double. And I do realize that real estate in a lot of markets has doubled, but that tells me that they're really riding that appreciation. Okay. So if this stays on the market a long time, I would be able to go back and I would negotiate based on the situation of the seller that I'm understanding here. Okay, here's another example for you. One of the things I mentioned is to look at the number of days on the market. And I just want to show you here on this property, it's only been on 25 days. So this again is from realtor.com. You look at it, see where the arrow's pointing. So I wouldn't go at this point and go in with a low offer. I would let it sit out there for a little while before I came in with a lot lower offer. So they start to realize that maybe the market isn't what they thought it was. Or, we've had that where we're watching properties and someone comes in and they buy it at a similar level. And we just realize, because we know the numbers that we have been taught through Wealth Builders and that we share at the workshop, which hopefully you all be going to, that, we're just not going to offer more. So if someone comes in and they offer more than what we're willing to, it's okay. We're okay letting that property go. We had a really interesting situation happen in Cocoa Beach. Actually, it was a property right next to one of the properties we own. And Levi ran the numbers and he's like, no, we can't go over this amount. And so we're like, okay, we let the neighbors know, like, we can't go over this amount. And they weren't happy with the number. And someone came in and they bought it for a much higher amount. But you know what? In talking to that seller or that buyer, they bought it too high because he got into it and he realized, like, oh my goodness, there's all these things that are happening with the property I wasn't aware of. And that's where we're like, thank you, Billy and Becky, because we are trained how to look for those things, and we weren't one of them to go and overpay. All right. This is a real MLS picture that the team sent me. It was amazing. They're like, look at this. This is what not to do. And this really is what not to do in a picture. But talking about the situation of the seller, look at this. You can see there's a lot of medical things happening. There's a bed, obviously a care situation. Here's a wheelchair. So just looking at that, I know, like, okay, this is probably someone that is very sick and had to go into the hospital or into a nursing home, or it might be a situation where it's become an estate because maybe this person passed away, and that's very sad. But this is a rough property, right? Every room looks like this, and now I know going in more about the situation of the seller, and that's from giving me a clue from that picture. All right, network with other real estate investors. This is something that we have seen really as an important aspect of being a part of the Wealth Builders coaching family, because we get together and I'm finding we're actually investing in clusters or different areas. And what I mean by that is if we're investing, up multiple people investing in an area so that we can share our resources, we can share our contacts, the familiarity of the area, we can have more of an impact for transformation, all those things. And so here's some things to look at as far as networking with other real estate investors. If an investor finds a deal that they cannot handle themselves right now, they can wholesale it to you below market. We just did this with Troy, and I'll show you a picture of it. That really makes a difference. And I saw this in Colorado Springs. The investors really work together, and in that, if one of the investors or the flip guys, they didn't have capacity, they would wholesale it to one of the other flip guys. And then with that, they were able to, purchase it. Both people it was a win-win, because they were able to really get it at a good price, but the person that found it was still able to do well. So this is a very, very powerful marketing tip for you as a real estate investor. Share key contacts in the industry to help each other through relationships. That is really important. I can't tell you how important relationships are, and you can lean into each other if you run into trouble. We've got a lot of examples of that, and it's been really successful building relationships with other investors. Talk to other investors in the neighborhood that are working on similar projects. We learned a lot on one of our projects by talking to the owner of the property next door and the general contractor. He was actually able to give us some insight into things that could have been a stumbling block for us if we weren't aware of it with that knowledge. We even had one investor, as we got this property I was sharing with you, we just tore it all apart on the inside, and he tried to buy it, right? Because he knew after talking to us that we were going to do things right. He knew what our plan was. He had a vacation rental and he wanted to buy it, and we would have made a lot of money if we bought it or sold it to him at that time without even going through the finishing. So you can lean on each other. It's really important. Share funding sources and products available. That's been a key thing. We learned about a product that really helps people get in the game on vacation rentals. How do we know those things? By talking to each other and networking with other investors so that we know what's worked for people and we can share that knowledge. Learn about the city guidelines, the markets, and insights from each other. That's helpful too. Like if there's other vacation rentals, hey, what's been your experience? Maybe before you even jump into buying something, what were the things you ran into? What do I need to be aware of? Those type of things. And I just listed here like, hey, Wealth Builders is all about this. That's why we've got the family of Wealth Builders, as Becky calls it. That's why we do the coaching, and we have so much emphasis on the network. That's why when their coaching clients sign up, that you all get lifetime access to all of the Wealth Builders events. And we always have a networking for all past coaching clients and current ones on the Friday of every event. It's all about this. All right, let's go to the next slide here. And this is a picture of the property that we bought from someone that was in the game, a real estate investor, Troy and Eileen, but they just couldn't handle this. So they gave us an opportunity to buy this from them wholesale. And I thought you might enjoy seeing the before and after. So this is the before, and then this is the after. This is what it looks like today. And it's been a great investment for us. All right, present your property to the ideal buyer with the end result in mind. Present it in a way that leads to the audience or the target market that you want to sell to or rent to. So determine your exit strategies and how the property will best cash flow. There's some areas that we look at it and we say, okay, this would be a good flip or a good vacation rental. Then we might go in another area and say, well, this would work as a long-term rental or a flip, right? Or maybe an executive rental. We really love to see you go in and have 2 exit strategies when you purchase. But if you know that and you know where you're headed to, you're going to do the finishes and the updates or stage it differently. For example, if it's a vacation rental, I know what people are looking for in a vacation rental. So I'm going to make sure that I do some things in that rehab or in that updating that is going to meet the needs of my ideal exit strategy. Or if it's a flip and I see the ARV, I know at that price point what's going to be important. Like the one I showed you there, that's going to be a buy and hold for us. Well, that price point is lower. So one of the things that we decided to do is we put granite in, but instead of a backsplash, we just put a ledge in the back. Because at that price point, someone's gonna not, choose not to buy it because it doesn't have a backsplash. However, if the ARV is more in that $700,000 range and upper end, they expect a backsplash. And this is a real simple example. Calculate your best ARV, which is your after repair value, and research properties in that range to determine what the hot items are that your customer segments are looking for in that price range. This varies by market. For example, in Florida, if you have an upper end property, you got to have a pool, or it's either going to sit on the market, and you can expect to get about $100,000 less in that situation. And it doesn't have to be a mystery. This is something that you can go through, study realtor.com, look at solds. Your real estate agent can help you. We just put one house on the market, a property, and it had the old brown granite counters. Well, we're listing it, over $1 million. And so we're like, you know what? Someone in that price range isn't going to be happy with our 90s brown granite countertops. So we're going to spend the $7,500 that we need to bring in Calcutta countertops, right? And there's some things we didn't do because it just didn't matter to people in that price range. But those key things, it helps you know what to invest in to make sure you get your ROI. Complete your finishes and updates to hit the sweet spot. Very important. Stage or furnish the property to meet and exceed the expectations of your target market. Staging, of course, is critical with a vacation rental. If you don't have things laid out and staged well, people just simply aren't going to book. So that is an obvious one. But if you want to move a property, maybe you've got a design or a floor plan that's just hard for people to understand how to live in it. Just a little bit of staging is going to go a long ways. Maybe you've got some dated elements that you want to draw their eye away from. You can do that through staging. And you all know I love to stage, and so I'm a big proponent of it, but the numbers do match up and work with that. Take amazing photos. Really important to present your property in a great light, because either if you're renting or if you are doing a vacation rental or you're doing a flip and you're trying to sell a house, they're looking online first to make a decision if they even want to look at your property. And then write effective descriptions and leverage SEO in your marketing. Carly, our daughter-in-law, has been doing that on her vacation rentals, and she goes in and tweaks them. She's figured out those algorithms, and she uses AI. She wrote our description on the house that we're selling through AI, and we just went in and tweaked it. But she finds those key words and she puts them in there. And we literally had a situation where we were talking about, like, hey, let's add fall right now into the subscription line or the description line. And it was like the next day, boom, we had a booking. So it really does matter. So I talked about exit strategies. I'll just share 4 of them with you. We've got the buy and hold, which is a long-term rental. We've got the flip, which you fix up a property and sell it. You've got a vacation rental, and then you've got executive rentals. So if you can research and know you've probably got a good chance at 2 of these 4, at least 3 of these 4, to use that property and kind of put, you know, a new assignment on it, and you'll still be okay financially, that is the best. And it doesn't have to be a mystery on what people are looking for. I just took this screenshot from our Airbnb, and this shares with you that the most wanted amenities in the Cocoa Beach area is child-friendly, pool, and infant-friendly. Well, if we have an upper end property, we're putting a pool in. Now we're doing something called cowboy pool, so we can say we have a pool. If it's something that works for children, we're gonna put that in there and SEO it. Or if we're able to put a pack and play or a place for an infant, we're gonna put that into the description because we know that's what people are searching for. So I'm just going to end this with a few before and afters that I think will be helpful for you. This is a property, you'll see the after on the left, but when we bought it on the before, it was on the right. So when you look at what can we do to increase the value of this property to hit that higher customer segment, we just whitewashed this, and then we did the floors, and I put in neutral furniture. So we probably had $100 into this, but look at the difference between the two. Those are the things that you can pick up with the things that I'm sharing. This is the kitchen before, when we purchased the property, you see that like it's got the brown counters. And then over here, this is the Calcutta and the update. So things like, you know what, we're not gonna have 50 things on top of the cupboards, okay? We're not gonna have overrun the cupboards with, or the countertops with stuff. We're going to make it clean and light, and we're going to present it in a way that's going to appeal to our customer segment. Same thing with the bedroom. When we bought it, old furniture, kind of laid out a little wonky, right? But just, you know, updated furniture, updated furnishings. We painted it, although there's not much of a difference. And you can see the look and feel is significant. This is much more conducive on the left-hand side here to a million plus buyer than over on the right, where it looks like probably 90s furniture. Same thing with the bathroom. This is a tip and a trick. When we looked at the master bedroom, or bathroom, excuse me, we didn't change any of what I would call the hard surfaces or anything expensive, okay? But we realized that to give it an updated look, while it wasn't worth it for us to tear out the granite counters to retile, we did add a rattan light fixture. I staged it in a way with different things that make it look more updated. I added some light rugs. And it's a little tough to tell in this picture, but really when you walk in the bathroom now, it looks like an updated bathroom, but we probably spent about $200 in that update rather than thousands. And so I knew the customer segment, the target market, and I was able to stage it and make some minor changes to be able to market to the people that we were going for. Same thing here with the family room. When we purchased the home, this was the family room, kind of that gold paint laid out very strange. This is that family room today. We didn't change the floors. We didn't do anything expensive. I laid it out different, painted the walls, added some different artwork, lightened it up. It looks like a completely different room, but the investment we made in it was minimal. So these are just things that give you little clues as to what you can do and make the right decisions based on your target market and research on how to sell it at the highest price in the fastest amount of time. Okay, take amazing photos. I couldn't resist this. This is one of them that the team members sent over to me. This is the dining room photo that I took. You see how you look at that, and it's like, wow, I kind of want to be there. I'm seeing sunshine. I've got like the little flowers in there. When you look at a picture like this, it draws you in versus look at this dining room. It's like, oh my goodness. I think it was like, let's just show them as much mess as possible, right? So this is not going to help you sell a home. This is going to help you sell a home because you're creating an emotion that people are drawn to, that they will want to come and look at your property. All right, so I just want to wrap this up, and the other coaches are going to be taking questions, which I'm really excited about. So hopefully you're asking those questions, and they'll have a lot to follow up on. But I want to remind you and invite you to come to the workshop October 13th through the 15th, and the team will put the directions on there of how to register. We still have a code available for you. It's WB200, which gives you $200 off. And really for the best experience, you can buy the master class, which is 10 courses, amazing courses from the team members with supporting information. And you can purchase that for $497 and get a free live stream ticket. or you can purchase it for $6.97 and get a free in-person ticket. So this will help you to kind of preview it maybe before you come to the event, so that when you're hearing things that you can absorb it. But also after the event, you'll have heard so much. We have over 20 sessions, and you can review this teaching and it will help you to absorb it. I know Dave and I had to hear things multiple times before we actually got it and were able to get in the game and really start investing. So I just want to thank you so much. Billy and Becky love and appreciate you. They can't wait to see you next weekend. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the amazing coaches, Frank and Troy. God bless you.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Some of my takeaways from this were knowing the seller situation. I've had that work to my advantage several times. I'm not talking in a manipulative way. I'm talking about in a way we were able to create a win-win situation. Knowing your numbers is really, really important, and it's not numbers that you wish they were. You got to have numbers that they really are, right, Troy?
That's right. Yeah, you got to have the right numbers. But if you've got a seller, I got to tell you this story real quick about a property I brought earlier this year. So I do some of what Karen's talking about, and I advertise. And my goal in advertising is to get motivated sellers to call me. And as she was talking about in the training, and as Billy says so profoundly, you've really got to know the seller situation. So this particular seller, they called me. I went and looked at the property. Here it's got a new roof. It's been replumbed. The electric's updated. There's new vinyl plank flooring. They've upgraded and updated the kitchen. I mean, it just needed to be dipped in a bucket of paint. And I figured it's worth about $350, and the most I could pay them and make anything work was about $220. And I just flat told him, I says, you've got a nice property here. Why don't you list it with a realtor? They says, well, it does need some work. And it did. The bathrooms needed some updating because it had belonged to their deceased parents. So these 3 adult children had inherited the property. Their parents had passed, but they had walk-in tubs in both bathrooms. So both bathrooms needed to be done. And I told him, you can list it at 280, 300, and you can sell it. And they answered and says, well, we know that, but we don't have time. I says, what do you mean? They says, we're almost out of money. We need money. And then they told me what my competing offers were. And it made it really easy to just walk in and say, well, I'll do better than that. And they took the offer and we closed within a couple of weeks and everybody was happy. So when you know their situation and you work it, you'll be amazed at what comes at you. Right, Frank?
Oh man, it is amazing too. Another takeaway too was having multiple exit strategies. I had a couple of times in the mid 2000s where I started a couple rehabs, thought I had buyers for them. The buyers dropped out and I ended up having to rent them rather than sell them as a short sale. So having those multiple exit strategies is paramount. Troy, one of the things that as far as numbers, one of the things we do in the coaching program is evaluate deals. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, because that really is important. As Karen's talked about during her training, you make money when you buy, not when you sell. So that means you've got to do the numbers up front. And we do teach formulas at the workshop that tell you what to look for, what neighborhoods to get into, what value range to be in, and how to calculate what your offer is so that you know exactly what to offer. Now, when you're using the right rules, you're not going to overpay for a property, and you are going to get it in something that's going to make profit.
Another thing too, regarding the real estate coaching, what were we doing last week at this time, Troy?
We had the advanced students for the Boots on the Ground tour out here in beautiful Space Coast of Florida.
That was great, huh? We looked at a bunch of properties courtesy of Troy's company, and we actually had a couple of students that had brought a property and they saw it for the first time, and being there to see the look on their faces was just, there are no words that can express that. So
that was so exciting to see. I got to hold the video camera as they put the key in the lock and entered into this long-term rental property that they had just bought with the help of a real estate agent and good evaluation. And
Yeah.
I probably am speaking a little sooner here, but I happened to talk to the leasing person that's taking care of that today, and she's expecting an application to rent that house already tonight.
Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome news.
That's
Then again,
beautiful. So
things kind of happen in a spiritual sense when you got the Lord on your side. So,
and that's what sets us apart with Wealth Builders is we are about giving you the education that you need to be able to make smart investments. But we're also about showing you in such a way that the Lord is involved in your business so that you're building it right for his glory and with his principles in mind. And between the training that you get with Wealth Builders and the presence of the Holy Spirit, it's really difficult to mess up if you're listening and following everything.
that's right. Hey, back to the advanced course. The only way you can get it, though, you can get in it is you got to complete our year one course. Then people have enjoyed that immensely. Hey, we've got some questions, so let's go ahead and field some of those, Troy.
Let's do that. You want to go ahead and start off? I see we've got one from Solange.
Yeah, it says,
I
I'm
see.
passionate about real estate, but just started learning and praying about it. Can I come to the workshop even if I'm a novice in real estate? Yes. As a matter of fact, you should come.
Yes.
I mean, we have everybody from rank beginners who don't know a single thing to people like ourselves or people that even own more properties than Troy and I and Karen all and Mike all together. It's for everybody. But if you're a novice, it's the perfect way to introduce yourself to real estate, to realize it's not rocket science. It's a matter of numbers and a matter of educating yourself and putting together ethical principles. Troy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's it. It really is. Like Frank said, there is people who've never done a deal, don't know anything about real estate, and people who already hold vast portfolios. So not only do you get a chance to really get the education to start going, and that's important because there is a learning curve in real estate. It's a lot of what you know, and you do need to make those decisions, but you also need to be able to network. And as Becky always says, Billy's wife, Becky always says, she wants a family, not a following. And Wealth Builders really is a family. So you get to network with other people there. You get to not only learn yourself, but you get to network with other people that are on the journey with you. So it's a beautiful thing. And I see, yep, you've said you'll see us there. So fantastic. We look forward to meeting you there. It'll be great to have you.
And don't feel bad that you're in office. We welcome you with open arms because we've all been there. And if good people hadn't taken us under their wings, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. I'm going to tell you that right now, especially with the help of the Lord. So here's one I'm going to throw at you. Troy, can you explain an executive rental?
Absolutely. And that's a great question because you need to understand there are multiple ways to be able to profit properties. You could probably, I've heard it said that there's 212 ways to make money in real estate and you only need to do one of them. So, and executive rentals is one of them. So let me kind of synopsize rentals. So everybody knows what a regular rental is. You buy a house, you rent it long-term lease on a month-to-month basis. That's one of my favorites. Then you have what's really popular today, a short-term rental, or also called a vacation rental. Those are a little bit higher maintenance, but they can also be a higher return. Now, an executive rental is similar to a vacation rental in the fact that you set it up, you typically furnish it and equip it. But now, instead of renting it to somebody for 3 nights or a week, you might rent it to somebody for 3, 6, or 9 months. A good example of somebody who would use an executive rental could be a traveling nurse, somebody who's going to go work on a project at a hospital somewhere for 3 to 6 months. They're going to rent something like that. Or we do have big corporations here in my market. One of them is SpaceX, Blue Origins, Boeing, Collins Aerospace. We've got a few of those companies here on the Space Coast. And they will do an executive rental of a property in order to have a place for their executives to stay as they're traveling in and out from the different offices. So did I cover that pretty well, Frank?
You did. And I tell you one other thing too is like an executive, they want them to stay in a nice place that's really comfortable. And actually for a big company, even with an executive rental that you price at a premium, it's cheaper than a hotel for the company. So they're very open to that type of thing. So what else we got, Troy?
Let's see, we've got a question here about finance. How do you get the finance to handle the cost of repairs, staging, and all the great things you mentioned to a new investor? Frank, you want to address that?
Well, I'll start with that. First of all, it depends, which is a lawyer answer. But hey, I tell you, Nana, there's a variety of ways of financing. I mean, one popular one for newer investors, if they have resources like a lot of equity in their home or something like that, you can go ahead and take some of the equity out. Now, you want to keep your first mortgage because it's probably at a lower interest rate. You don't do what we call a cash out refi, but you can take a little bit of money. A nice part about a HELOC is that you only pay for it if you use it. HELOC stands for home equity line of credit. But that's a great way to get in. Let's see, we also cover a ton of different creative financing. There's conventional financing. You want to handle that real quick, Troy, as far as
conventional financing? And then if we're talking fixing up, there's fix and flip financing. So
yeah,
conventional financing works very much like any mortgage you would use to go buy your house. Now, the down payment requirements are usually a little bigger for an investor, but it's a great way to get into a first or a second rental property. Now, if you move beyond that, or if you get a property that's ugly and needs some work, one of my favorite things to do is buy distressed properties. That's been something I've done, buy, fixed, and resold distressed properties for about the last 10 or about almost 20 years now. I started doing that in 2003, so that is 20 years. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
With that, you can use what's called a hard money loan, and that some people think of Guido in the pinstripe suit knocking on your door and asking for your payment. That's not it. Without getting into details, because we don't have that much time, hard money just means they're loading on the hard value or hard asset of the property. And it's a perfect way to fund your repairs on a fix and flip, or even a BRRRR, a buy, rehab, rent, and refinance. So there's so many different ways, and we talk about a lot of these financing strategies at the Wealth Builders events.
Yeah, one good source of leads, and if you don't have leads, you have no business. So is people that have been landlords and just are tired of it. They want to retire. Maybe the COVID thing kind of got to them. And these people are pretty easy to talk to because you're talking business to business, so to speak. And a lot of times, if they sell their rentals outright, they're going to pay a lot of capital gains tax, versus if they accept a small down payment from you and you make payments to them, they only pay for what they receive over a year. And if the other thing, it's a win-win, because you get a good deal, you get a good price. But if you look at, as the tired landlord, what you could make over 10 years on interest, even at 3 or 4%, it's crazy. So it's a great way to finance for everybody. So
absolutely.
Yeah, what else we got here, Troy? Oh, we have a nice compliment about us making confusing sometimes real estate market makes sense. It's not rocket science. You may feel like, as Billy says, drinking from a fire hose the first time you're through, but there's so many resources. Believe me, I don't think I'm a dumb guy. I know definitely Troy isn't, but I remember my first couple of seminars, and it's like, I can never do this. Well, I ran a successful business for 22 years. It did millions of dollars a year, had several employees, and I know Troy comes from the same kind of background. So believe me, you can do it. All right.
Yes, you can. And thank you very much for that compliment and encouragement, Eric. That we're glad that you're enjoying it. And he recognized our Bill Bronchick answer.
Bill Bronchick, yeah, it depends. Well, sometimes it does depend.
It really
does. A lot more information. All right.
The next question's about all-in-one mortgages.
Okay.
So many different financing options. You familiar with the all-in-one mortgage, Frank?
Yes, kind of, but let me get your take on it first.
Well,
So we're
it's
talking
kind of
about
a
the same thing.
hybrid mortgage that allows you some open-ended financing.
Yeah,
If you're good at money management, it can be good. The danger with that is it's very much akin to the negative amortization loans that we had before. People tend to use their equity as an ATM machine to go ahead and overspend. So it is it can be good if you're a good financial manager. So now, if you're using it to try to accelerate your mortgage, you're just about better off to have a 30-year fixed on the front end and then
yeah,
do a HELOC and use your HELOC as a buy down account. That's a pretty aggressive strategy that helps you to buy it off while still having credit line freed up. And it's a little bit of a safety net because you're paying principal on something you can't access. So that could help. But yeah, I'm personally not a big fan of what they call the all-in-one because, and I do see you pulled it out here, it really is just a flexible HELOC that
yeah.
too many people could overspend your equity and in debt yourself. So if you're not financially savvy, I'd caution against it.
Yeah, I remember back in the mid 2000s, these were popular. They called them negative am mortgages. You had several options. You could pay principal and interest and maybe even make an additional principal payment. You could pay just interest only, or sometimes you could actually not pay anything for a short period of time, but at some point in time, you got to pay the piper. And people that were not disciplined to at least make a couple of extra principal payments a year found themselves upside down, which in addition to lenders have loose standards and appraisers kind of running amok back in the mid 2000s, which by the way has changed a lot. That along with those creative mortgages had a real negative effect on the market. Now, if you're an experienced investor, you can use those to your advantages. And one thing that people are doing now is maybe going in with maybe a 5 or 7 year HELOC, and just which is a not a HELOC, a 5 or 7 year ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, and that rate can go up or down a little bit. But we are hopeful in the next couple of years that rates are going to go down a bit. So it's a real easy finance to get out of that. And honestly, if you're like in a 7 year ARM, I mean, your rates are not going to go up for quite a bit of time. One thing on some of these mortgages, though, you got to make sure you look at is if there's any prepayment penalties, because it can, if you want to refinance or get out of it, sometimes it can cost you a lot of money to do that.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I'm watching some of the comments.
So from what I understand, all-in-ones require 25% as well. Don't know how well it fits with Billy's system. Well, I mean, Billy is in a position where he can pay cash for most of his purchases, which for us as regular investors, even though we're doing well, if I could buy a $500,000 house or buy 10 and put $50,000 each on them, I would do the second thing because I'm controlling millions of dollars of property with just a $50,000 per property, investment. And if you buy right, it can only go up from there. Anything else you want to throw on that, Troy?
Yeah, I'd say when Billy talks about the law of leverage, he does say that as an investor, you're going to be putting 20 to 25% down. And if you're getting a property that doesn't really need a lot of work and the numbers work to where you're still going to get the recommended cash on cash return, then that's okay. The problem with that is no matter who you are, you've only got so many resources and pretty much you're property rich and cash poor. So to really make it work, you need to mix and match a few strategies, do some short-term flips, some long-term buy and holds, and that gives you money to constantly reinvest while you're growing your portfolio. And the more actively you're able to mix and match strategies, the faster you're able to build a portfolio or to build wealth. So now I do a lot, like I said, with the distressed properties. And because of some of the relationship I've got established with some of these lenders, I've got lenders out there that will fund 100% of my purchase, including my rehab, Of course, that caps out at about 70% of what the property's worth. But again, that's what we're buying it at. We're buying it at 70 cents or less on the dollar. So we're able to get that in there and make it cash flow, make it work without having to pull.
Whoops. Hey, Troy, you're muted.
I'm
There you
moving
go.
my hand and bump the keyboard. So I think what Frank and I want to put out there is you don't want to be limited by your don't try to put all your financing apples in one box. There's so many ways to put a deal together. And after 30 years, I'm still learning new ways that come out. So it's just never ending, right, Frank?
It never is. I mean, I learned a lot on this trip we did to Florida. I mean, I learned a ton of stuff. So, but yeah, the thing is, you want to get your money back. So when you put it into a property, return on investment, which we're looking at a minimum of 10 to 12%, hopefully more, is how fast you're going to get what we call your all-in money back, your down payment, any money you put into the property, closing costs, that sort of thing. And you want to get that back fairly quickly, but it also allows you to buy more properties. So if I've got 5 rentals that are cash flowing, $400 a piece per month versus 1 rental that's paid for, but I might be, making 2/3 of that, which is a better way to go. And those other 5 properties are going to appreciate in value, and that we're going to get more as the years go by for rents on those. All right. We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. And man, I got to tell you, we really appreciate the response and the attendance tonight.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate all the questions, the feedback, the support. It's really good. So
Good questions.
Yeah, great questions.
And I know we've pounded this to death, but again, we still have room for the real estate workshop next a week from this weekend, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And on your webinar chat, you've got a link and also a discount code you can put on there. Troy, anything else?
Yeah, let me throw that out about the upcoming workshop, because we do hear people ask about what's going on in the market, and depending on what financial gurus you're listening to, I heard a couple of reports today. One says prices are going to start going up and continue to appreciate, and the other one says we're about to crash and go into the Great Depression. So that's just like any financial news in any market. But after 30 years in real estate, I can tell you, I do feel a correction coming. Billy's talked about it, and I would encourage you to search some of his webinars. There's one in the YouTube channel called Something's Gotta Give, that Billy talks about the economic outlook, and he does see a downturn, which is a great buying opportunity. I'm only bringing this up because we hear people sometimes say, well, gee, if the market's going to go down, why should I get in? It's at times of market distress that wealth is transferred.
Yeah.
Many of us are believers. We've heard the prophetic proclamations that the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, but we're the righteous, and where is the wealth? Well, we need to learn to understand how to take advantage of these shifts in the market so that we can capture the wealth. Now's a great time to jump into this market with both feet, both hands. We're not talking about wading in, we're talking about jumping in. So I would really encourage you to look ahead to the future with the hope and the promise that the wealth is about to be transferred into our hands. And with that, I would encourage you to join us at the workshop, either in person or live stream, so that you can get this information, so that you can be equipped with the wisdom that you need for God to put the wealth into your hand.
Too many people are sitting on the fence, and by the time they say conditions are right, you're going to have a lot of competition. Right now, there are deals to be had. You don't have as much competition. Hey, we got 2 more questions, and then we're going to go ahead and get out. So real quickly, it says, where are you guys most actively investing? I've invested in Colorado Springs, in California, in Nevada, and Denver. And right now, most of what I hold is in Nevada. Troy?
And most of mine is in Florida, but that's because what's where I'm at. That's my footprint. I've owned properties in other states, and we teach you how to identify the best markets so that you can pick what makes sense to you. And then rushing through this real quick, Patrick says, I'm based in the UK. Do you think this training applies also to the UK? Don't we have a couple from the UK?
We do.
And they've got a phenomenal testimony of what they've been able to accomplish with the properties that they've bought there. And how many do they have now, Frank? 6?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So yes, it
Yes.
does apply in the UK. Yes, you can do this anywhere. So
Well, hey, I know we've got a couple of other questions. You know what we do is we normally try to save these, and then we'll put them on a podcast here in the future, and we'll try and answer those. So, stand by and look for those. But in the meantime, we want to thank you guys for joining us. And boy, thank Karen. What a heck of a presentation.
yes,
Troy, any parting words?
that's it. We hope to see you next week. And if not, we'll see you on another webinar.
All right. You guys take care. God bless you.
Good night.